Hello everyone, so I want to talk about a review of one of my favorite horror series of all time that actually came out recently. See, when it comes to horror movies, I've always been a bit skeptical of series, even more than movies, because you have to have a good plot line. It can't just be jump scare, it can't just be random horror tricks and tactics. It has to have a generally good plot line, and it has to go above and beyond just the typical notions of your standard horror movie, like a zombie apocalypse or your standard like this is the end of the world type thing. It doesn't really resonate with me. That's why when it came to things like The Walking Dead and other stuff, I kind of took a back seat because I wanted something new, something exciting, something fresh. So when The Strain aired on Fox, I was pretty interested. One, because it has Gail Del Toro, who is a master at horror. He's made some of the most amazing horror flicks. He's an amazing artist. He just has really, really good vision for horror. It's his thing. But The Strain kind of combined the idea of taking vampires, taking parasites, and taking like ancient magic, ancient ideas, and rituals, and kind of combines it all together. And not to really spoil the plot, but the idea of it is that there is a master vampire who broke off from an archangel when that archangel was cut into multiple pieces. And unlike the other vampires, he goes rogue and he wants to enslave humanity and affect his strain of vampirism on all of them. Now, why I really love that is these vampires do not really act like your typical zombies. This guy has a way of thinking that, even though I'm evil, I'm the good guy. I want to convert all these humans because instead of being human, they'll have my gift, they'll have my strain, and I'm the best vampire out there. While the other vampires just want to live in peace and not inflict like their biology on anyone, if I can use that term. But it's interesting to see how the protagonist's Ep, who is a CDC doctor, how his partner, and how different people come into the fray. Now, the exciting thing is there's people from all different backgrounds. It's not just your typical, like, one guy, like, I'm a tough guy, military guy, or I'm a Navy SEAL or something like that. Even though there are military people in this plot, the interesting thing is you get one guy from the CDC, one guy, Vasily Fett, who's an exterminator. You get people who are former gangsters like Gus. You get Abraham Satrakian, who's a survivor of World War II, where this whole plague started. And they all team up. So there's a plethora of different personalities. There's a plethora of different ideas. And there's even a character that I really love called Mr. Quinlan, who was created by this master vampire. But then this master vampire just ruins his life. He ruins everything about, his existence. He destroys his even potential love life with a human. So he's going after the master, and he has the equal strength and skills of him, which makes it to be really interesting that there are groups of vampires against the master. There are groups of vampires working for him, mainly humans that have been infected. And there's also humans, working together, to try and stop the master. And there's even humans who are working with the master. There's a few of them. And there's one particularly from World War II, I Corps, who was a former German officer who now has converted to vampire, who's trying to orchestrate this whole thing. So there's a lot of details. It's a very complex plot, in my opinion, because not only does it have a plethora of personalities, there's a lot of different stuff going on. It shows how family relationships are broken through this strain. You can kind of equate that to The Walking Dead, but it's not just completely about survival. There is a huge survival aspect once you get later down the road, but a lot of it deals with, family relationships, how some families are having problems, like Epps going through a divorce, and then this strain hits and how they deal with that, how, families work together, how people kind of have that son-father relationship bond, and there's a lot to it. So with all those details, there is a lot of also good action to it. There's a lot of good fighting scenes. So not only is the plot complex, not only are the characters diverse, but I think one of the things that really add to it is, hey, I think we all like some good action in horror. We don't like to just be chased around. At least I don't. I always wanted to see in a good horror film some good fighting as well. Some good, conflict going on between the protagonist and the antagonist. And with The Strain, there's a lot of fighting with swords, guns. There's a lot of people ambushing each other. There's a lot of, mayors and people in the city rising up and fighting against these vampires. And then, since the vampires aren't just like zombies, they actually have this crazy tongue. They extend out. They can run pretty fast. It makes for an interesting type of conflict between humans and these species. And then there's always ways that the master and this guy, Icorst, are coming, at it from a different angle of trying to fight with the humans. So they're not just saying, oh, okay, just run out there like crazy. Sometimes they're infecting people who are, really big and bulky and doing experiments to make them stronger. There's even a crazy part where they go after some orphan kids and then they use them to try and track down different people. They also, infect people, military personnel and use them for their endeavors and everything in between. So there's a lot of diversity in the conflict as well. It's not just your typical, okay, well, there's a zombie outbreak and we're going to go run and kill all these zombies and then the zombies just keep coming. We're going to fight them. It's more of a chess game with action, of course, but it's more of a chess game. Like, how can the humans get one over on the vampires? And then sometimes it's looking like, oh, the humans are going to win. Like, there's a few scenes where they get the master, they really, beat him up, or they shoot him up, or they lock him in a coffin. You're like, man, they got him. It's done. But then the tides turn. Something happens, and then the master gets away, and he figures something out again. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're back at it. So there's a lot of times in this series where you're thinking, are the bad guys winning? Are the good guys winning? Who will win out? It's like, oh, the good guys won. Think again, the bad guys are back. Oh, well, now it's kind of in between. Well, now the bad guys just took a city. Well, they detonated this. They defeated a bunch of vampires. Well, how are we going to win this? And there's a lot of talking, if you watch the series, how are they going to defeat the master? Oh, we could use sunlight. We could use a coffin. Could we use a nuke? And they're always coming up with different theories. Like, well, I don't know if we truly got the main antagonist or not. What else can we do? And that makes for a very interesting series because you think you got the bad guy, you think you got the antagonist, but then you're not quite sure. And then he's back, and then you're thinking, well, I need another method to beat him. So it's not just your typical, well, I'm just going to shoot, this guy and call it a day. Or I'm just going to, try and blow this guy up or burn him and call it a day. It really comes down to a lot of thinking. There's a lot of interpersonal relationships. It's a great plot. Yeah, I think, honestly, it's underrated. It's an amazing series. It aired on Fox. But if you're into a little bit of horror, a little bit of action, a little bit of drama, a little bit of everything, and just an amazing plot, check out The Strain by Guillermo del Toro. You're going to love it.